Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. I am going to assume that I'm live. I've got nothing to base that assumption off other than the fact that I'm talking and YouTube tells me that I'm live. Let's see if I can... I've got a notification to my phone saying that I am live. That's fantastic. So tell me if you can hear me all right. I can adjust the volume. Oh, brilliant. There are people saying hello. That's fantastic. So there's a person that said first who is 7th in the list, so that's great. So what I thought I'd do today is share with you my new wall of many things, because there are many things on my wall of many things. So I thought I'd share that with you. I'm actually considering going live on Facebook as well. I have a couple of people that watch me on Facebook, so let me see if I can do this. Live video of the wall of many things. So, right, I think I am live on Facebook as well. I'm not sure if that's worked. If you're joining me on Facebook, then hello. If you're joining me on YouTube, then hello. Oh no, I think Facebook's only just now started. I don't know. Hello, wherever you're from. I've not tried to do 2 live streams at once before, so this is going to be interesting. So you join me here in my new place, in the wall of many things, and I thought, sorry, in front of the wall of many things, and I thought I'd share with you today a little bit about what I've got. People that have watched this channel for a long time will have known about my wall of many things, but some of you perhaps don't. So, actually, let's just, since there's been a question of this, let's just start off by saying my last video, I invited anyone who wants to have a go at writing a script for me. And it's fairly fair to say that that's been an absolute disaster. There is a whole lot of absolute rubbish on there. But I'll see if I can make something of the dregs and turn it into something perhaps, or maybe I'll just do a video where I just read the whole thing, although last time I looked it was at 50-something pages long. But anyway, this video is not going to be about that. Let's talk about the wall of many things. So we'll start in the top left here. This instrument up here is a American-style B-flat baritone. It's got 3 piston valves that are on the front of the instrument. The bell tilts forward a little bit. If you see my video on the baritone, you will see that. Let's tilt the thing up so you can see a little bit better what that is. That's actually a better view. Moving along here, we have my 6-valve B-flat trumpet. This instrument was created by 2 of the world's cheapest trumpets, because I bought 2 of them because I make good life decisions, and I decided to solder them both together. It doesn't really work because the parts of the instruments that I used to start with were just rubbish, so it's just cheap and nasty, but it's an interesting piece of wall art. The next one that we have along, this one here, this is a new instrument that I acquired. It's a Couturier conical bore trumpet. Those people who are very familiar with my videos will know I also have a Couturier conical bore cornet. And this is a trumpet version of it that I just got off eBay not so long ago, actually. I haven't done any videos on it. It's not in as nice a condition as my conical bore cornet is, but it's, you know, up on the wall nonetheless. The interesting things to note about that, as you may be able to see, is that the 1st and 3rd valve tuning slides, they're not parallel. The tubing of them are splayed off so that the bend at the end of the valve tuning slides are less dramatic. So that is one of the principles that went behind that instrument's design. They're very rare, very uncommon, and I'm very fortunate to have 2 of that style of instrument in my collection. Below it, just where the end of my finger is pointing, is a conical, what is it called? An Inharmonic Cornet. So let's. This is an interesting cornet made by Gibson and Co. And what makes this interesting is that it has 2 sets of tuning slides for the first valve and 2 tuning slides for the second valve. And the airflow goes into the third valve first, which in and of itself isn't particularly uncommon. If you do use the third valve, it goes through the longer first and second valve tuning slides. If you don't use the third valve, the airflow goes through the shorter first and second valve tuning slides. So it's an old style of compensation to help bring the instrument's tuning into, bring the instrument closer into tune. This is actually the second of these instruments that I have. I have 2 Gibson & Co. Inharmonic Cornets. This is the second one I have. This one is in far worse condition than the first. There's a whole bunch of dents on the bell crook, and I'm actually going to do a video in the future showing how to get rid of dents that are on the back of this bell, because I just spent a little while ago, I spent a reasonable amount of money on buying some dent removal tools. So that's something for me to look forward to procrastinating about. Let's put this back here. I'll line that up a little bit better later. Right, next instrument we've got is this one here. This here is a rotary valve sort of tenory bass trumpet in E flat. So it's an octave lower than an E flat soprano cornet, the same as an alto or tenor horn, in the key of E flat, as I said. So it plays lower than a normal bass, than a normal trumpet. And that one's interesting. I bought that off eBay a few years ago, and it's just, yeah, been something that I've used a few times. I would do some sound demonstrations of this, but I don't have any soundproofing in this room, and my daughter is currently upstairs asleep. So if I woke the beast, as the expression is, I'd be in a lot of trouble, and this live stream would be cut very short. Right above my head is a trumpet. This is an instrument that was made by Gibson. It was donated to me by a very kind viewer of this channel. And it is, I mean, it doesn't have a lot of musical worth. Even if it was in absolutely perfect condition, the trumpet, which is supposed to be a combination of a French horn and a trumpet, it was an awful idea. It's not brilliantly executed, and it's nothing really to celebrate in terms of innovation or anything like that. It's in the key of F. A lot of people comment on how I say F. I don't know how else to say it, but, you know, F. It is in that key between E flat and G. So, yeah, that's it. That's where it is. The instrument here is something that I got when my grandfather died. Let me get this down. This was made in 1885, and one day I want to restore it because it's originally silver plated, and if you soaked this in vinegar, white vinegar, dilute white vinegar, you'd actually probably find the silver, but it's going to be a massive amount of work because I think this is fiberglass that somebody has put on there. It's definitely not solder, but there are huge points of solder where somebody has tried to solder things back together. I think using a soldering iron. I don't think that's done by a torch. So it's in really rough condition. The valves still work quite loudly, but for an instrument that's 145 years old, it's 135 years old, it's doing pretty well. So anyway, what is this? Other than a collector of cobwebs, this here is a type of alto horn. Let's actually firstly say it was made by F. Gibson. So before Gibson & Co. and before Boozy bought Gibson, Gibson was called F. Gibson. And so this was made by them. So that's the stamp on the front. Not that there's going to be much that you'll be able to see on that because of how tarnished it is. Nearly every solder joint has been broken at least once. So it needs a bit of a restoration work. What makes this instrument interesting is that it is in the key of almost whatever you want. It was designed so that it could play on the key of E, E flat, D, D flat, C, and B natural. By changing the tuning slides. So if we take one of them out, and surprisingly, the tuning slides, some of them come out very easily, as if it's been well maintained. And I'll try to show this on you, but show this to you. The tuning slides have marks on them saying where they need to be in pitch for different keys. So down the bottom, we've got E natural, E flat, D. Does it go then to D flat, and then C? So you take this. I don't think there is a B natural actually. So it goes from E natural down to C, and so you pull the tuning slides out to the amount that you want it to be for the key that you want to play it in. And then what you need to do is take the main tuning slide out here, which is just like a crook, and you swap this in for whatever key that you want to play in. I have no idea what pitch this particular tuning slide is in. It should be written on it somewhere potentially. Well, there's something that looks like C, so this might be the C tuning slide. But this instrument would have come with a whole bunch of extra tuning slides, and you're just swapping the main tuning slide for the key that you want, adjust all the other valves so that they were in the key that you wanted as well, and then you could play. So anything from E natural down to C. A very interesting instrument. Of course, it's completely obsolete now, but yeah, I found it quite interesting. And this is what the valves look like. Nothing particularly remarkable about them. Yeah, so this is an instrument, as I said, that I inherited when my grandfather died. And I want to get it restored one day, but it's beyond my current skills to do that. And it's one of those things where I don't know if I should get it restored or whether I should just leave it as it is. Because actually restoring it might cause more damage than what it's got now. I don't know what this instrument is specifically called. It's obviously a type of alto or tenor horn. But whether or not it had a special name, because there are things like vocal horns and ballad horns and all sorts of things. I know it's not one of those, but whether or not this instrument had a special name when it was made, I'm not too sure. How did I have this? Did I have it something like... No, it wasn't like that at all. I'm going to have to look at the video to see how I had this before. In the meantime, I'll just put it down on the ground gently. Right, moving across. This here is a little brand, LIDL. Actually, it isn't. Acoustic. That must be the model. I think it was made by, yeah, LIDL, Little BRNO, which is the location. This here is an unusual type of French horn. It works, reasonably well mechanically. It's got a few clunks and things. But what makes this instrument interesting is that instead of being instead of the normal way that the tubing and so forth is routed through this instrument, it has this very large rotary valve here. So the single rotary valve goes all this way here. It twists, so it's not like a piston valve. It is a rotary valve that twists this way. And it turns this into a compensating horn. So if you want to play it in high B flat, then each of these tuning slides just goes through the shortest path. So for instance, this one goes from here through this tuning slide and then up into the valve again. But if you turn this, it adds these bits of extra tubing onto the loop of the valve. So it adds extra pitch, so it goes from being a B flat horn into an F horn. And I've got this in my collection because it is a very interesting design. When I got it, it didn't function at all. It was squashed in a lot of places, and I had a bit of a fundraiser to get this restored to a playing condition. So there's a few videos on this instrument on my channel, if you go back far enough. Very interesting. I'm not much of a French horn player, so I can't really do the sound justice, but I've got a person that sits near me in one of the bands that I play in, and I'm hoping one day to have him try this instrument out, because he is a French hornerer and will probably make it sound quite nice. Made in Czechoslovakia, of all places, and now I've taken that down. I'm going to put this down on the ground as well so that I can put it back properly when I'm not sitting down. No, that's not safe there. Let's gently do that. Right, moving along. At the top there is a bugle. Nothing really to mention about that. My hands are filthy now after touching that. We've got this one here, which is a shalmai. It's a very odd reeded instrument. Oh gosh, it's hard to point to things. It's a very odd reeded instrument. It's got 3 valves. It's got 8 different bells. And you press the valves down in particular combinations, and they will route the air through one of the reeds into one of the bells. It's an atrocious sounding instrument that is basically a collection of car horns. If you want to hear what it sounds like, then I've got a video that I refer to it as the, I think the video is called something along the lines of the most perfect instrument in the world, because it's about everything I hate from an instrument. So it's, yeah, it's pretty disastrous, really. Right, what else have we got? Up in the top there, that is what looks like a flugelhorn, but it isn't technically a flugelhorn. It's an American marching type of flugelhorn. It's in the key of G. So trying to use it in any group these days would mean that you have to transpose everything up a minor third. No, not a minor third, a minor fourth, a perfect fourth, or whatever that equates to. It's kind of interesting. It was made by the Donald E. Gibson company, which was, I think, the son. Donald E. Gibson, I think, was the son of the Gibson of Gibson, whatever, who made the Gibson company. And his son split off from the family after an argument over a game of Monopoly, potentially, and started his own company called DEG. And this is one of the instruments that he created. I've actually got a couple of them in my collection somewhere. But this one's particularly interesting because it's in the key of G. So that's why that one fits on my wall of many things. I've also got this one here, which is an alto horn, which effectively looks like a flugelhorn, but in the key of E flat. So I've got 3 different types of flugelhorns. I've got my solo horn here, which is in E flat. I've got this marching one, which is in G. And then you've got a normal flugelhorn, which is in the key of B flat. So if you played them all together, everything you would play would be a lovely major triad. So I might try that one day. The trombone bell that you can see right there is just the bell section to this trombone valve section. This is a quite an interesting trombone valve section that is interesting because it has Sturzel valves or Vienna valves, and this is what that looks like. So you've got this little plate here that's just where your thumb goes, and then you push the valves down like this. There is nothing actually in these 3 chambers here, these barrels here. They've just got a rod that goes from the top of the valve finger button right down through to the bottom. And that is connected via a triangular style plate here to the main 2 barrels, 2 chambers for each of the valves. So it's quite a convoluted arrangement that has no benefit compared to the later designed Pyrenees valves that we're familiar with, or piston valves that we're familiar with. And so what would happen is that the air would come through the lead pipe here. You would push a valve what would happen is that the airflow would then get diverted through a very, very sharp 90-degree bend into the tuning slide, and then another 90-degree bend into the next part of the valve block. So this instrument has quite a lot of resistance. I have played it in a video before that talks specifically about the Vienna valves in some more detail, so you can see what it sounds like on there. It has some really quirky intonation things. It's very difficult to play in tune, and it has a lot of resistance and so forth. It was made by Descartes Frère in France. Oh, I can't quite read that, but I have absolutely no idea when it was made. I suspect it was made sometime in the middle of the late half of the 1800s, but I've got absolutely no idea when it was actually made. I think it's nickel plated and not silver plated because of the way that it doesn't take a polish, but I'm not too sure about that. I know very little actually about this instrument based on its age and the fact that there's something, it's very hard to, there's no real resources about it online. How did I do this? Will that do for now? Yes, that'll do for now. That's, no, not at all safe. I might have to do that later as well. I'm disassembling my wall of many things here, and I'm not doing a great job of putting them back. All right, continuing on our merry way. The trombone over here is a Gibson Super Deluxe, and it has a couple of odd design choices in it. Let me just grab it. They also had a trombone that was similar to this, which they called the Dude. But this isn't the Dude, this is the Super Deluxe. And it is very interesting. It's got a three-tone metal approach. We've got a garland around the bell, which is a coppery color. The rest of this is gold brass. Up in the top here, we've got, again, gold or yellow brass, copper, silver, the copper and the brass again. We've got an interesting design for the bracing. This appears to be just hexagonal tubing. We've got this approach for your thumb, which my thumb only just fits in it. And then on the slide brace, we've got this little thing here to hold, to keep your pinky from getting pinched. And then we have an interesting style for the bracing for the slide as well. Unfortunately, this instrument is just too small for me to hold comfortably. I have very large hands, and trying to hold this in any way that I'd actually be able to play it is not really practicable. So it's a bit of a shame, but it's sat on my wall of many things for a very, very long time, just because I can't play it and it looks interesting. So I shall put that down as well. Right, what haven't we talked about? We've got a couple of two-valve instruments here. This one on the top is a Soprano Bugle in the key of G. That one, I think, was also made by DEG, Donald E. Gibson. It's an interesting instrument. I've done a video about that on the past. Yeah, it's got two valves because regulations in the drum and bugle corps at the time said that you were allowed two valves, but no more than two. Below that is a French-made two-valve Flugelhorn in the key of B flat. But in this case, I have absolutely no idea whatsoever why it has only two valves. Absolutely no idea. French instruments of the period quite often had three valves. It's got Pyrenees valves as opposed to any of the older style of valves. So it's not of an age where they were not having three valves. So I have absolutely no idea why that's only got two valves. It's very interesting. Other than that, I know absolutely nothing about that as well. Next to that is my I think it's an 18E mellophonium. This is an instrument which I was sent as well. It's quite interesting in that it is 2 feet long, and when you play it, the bell pretty much covers up nearly all of your field of vision straight ahead. So it's a deeply impractical instrument. It is quite heavy. It doesn't sound particularly nice. A Con 16E, so there, not an 18E, the 16E. It's just strange. But I mean, because it's strange, it's therefore interesting to me, and so I'm glad to have this in my collection. It takes a is that a French horn shank? I'm not sure if that is. It takes a small mouthpiece. I think it's in the key of F, but I think there may have been different tuning slides to put into the key of E flat. I'm not 100% convinced that I've got that right. But that's what that is anyway, the Con 16E Mellophonium, which I think went there. I've got a little pocket cornet, pocket trumpet next to that, which is unremarkable in every way. And then I have an instrument that I haven't demonstrated on this channel before. This one's quite interesting to me. This was made by Hallery, H-A-L-A-R-I, and it is a French manufacturer. They were a French manufacturer. And it's the compensator model Flugelhorn. What makes this instrument interesting is that the tuning slide approach, the way that the tuning slides are designed, are completely different to anything else that you will have seen before, unless you're particularly familiar with this particular instrument. There is no dedicated third valve tuning slide off the third valve. So the airflow goes first into the first valve, straight from the lead pipe. I'll keep rotating this. This here is your first valve tuning slide. Then the air goes into the second valve there. The second valve tuning slide's at the back. Then the air goes into the third valve tuning slide. And regardless, if you use the third valve tuning slide, if you use the third valve, I should say, the air routes back to the first valve, and then I get confused as to whether it goes here. It goes back to the first valve regardless of whether you use the third valve or not. It just uses a different path through it. So there are a whole bunch of tubes coming off that third valve. You've got 2 on this side, 1 in the middle, and another one off here. And so I think this here is your actual third valve tuning slide. And this here is potentially your just another tuning slide. I don't know. It's really odd. Yeah, quite fascinating. I didn't even know this maker existed until I came across this instrument on eBay. The valves also look really weird in terms of the way that the paths, the ports through the valves are configured. They just don't look like anything that I've seen before. Unfortunately, the valves have got a reasonable amount of wiggle in them, and if you tried to play this instrument, there is quite a lot of air leakage, or the sounds of air leakage. So I need to do some actual work before this instrument will be playable. Yeah, but the valves sort of work. They're a little bit noisy. It needs a lot of restoration and things like that. There are a couple of interesting stamps on here. There's one there, which I don't know if my webcam is going to focus on or not, which is a picture of a treble clef which has got the E flat and the A flat drawn in for some reason with a chord D, whatever that means. So maybe that's a way to tune your E flats and your A flats. I don't know why that's mentioned out. We've got another stamp at the back which says compensator, which I believe to be the model name rather. We've got another one there which says a chord D, and then you've got D and C sharp written, drawn in there. So that must have something to do. Focus. Are you going to focus for me? Probably not. That must have something to do with the way that the tubing is recognized so that you can have different tuning for different notes. I'm not too sure. It's a really elaborate tuning approach. It's just a shame that there's a lot of ear leaks in this, so that I can't actually, play test it or give any example of what it actually sounds like. Moving across, we have this here, which is a 4-valve rotary Bohemian style baritone made by Amity in Kraslice, however that's pronounced, in Czechoslovakia. It's quite an interesting instrument. It all works reasonably well. It just needs a little bit of a lubricant, and then that would be up and running again. I have my YouTube logo here, which was cross-stitched by a friend of mine. So that's quite nice. And then on the other side, we have my Piccolo Trombone, which is the world's smallest mass-produced trombone. It's ridiculous. It's an octave above a standard trumpet, 2 octaves above a tenor trombone. It doesn't even have a slide lock, so you have to be quite careful with that. So that is my Piccolo Trombone. And then right on the end there, we have over here, we have a standard Rotary Valve B-flat trumpet. That was made in the Ukraine or Russia, one of the two. It's a Soviet-era instrument made in the Soviet Union. And that's really all there is to say about that. Now, despite this being my wall of many things, it's not actually all of the instruments that I have. Those of you who follow me on Facebook and Instagram will have seen a few photos of my collection, and I'm going to sort of grab the webcam and show you a little bit around. These are my storage racks for my instrument collection. We have 2 racks full of instruments. There's a car seat down there, which you can ignore. There's a bunch of instruments over there as well. And then over in the far corner is a repair desk where I'm going to do most of my repairs from. If we come back around here, you can see where I've currently got my servers set up and my storage. You can see that down there on the ground, being carefully protected, is my 5-valve euphonium. And so I'm still very much in the process of getting things set up. Although I've also got a digital piano over in that corner over there too. So there's a lot of stuff in this room, and I'm still really not I haven't got everything set up. I'm obviously not going to have my servers and storage in here. That's going to go in the garage once there's a room once there's room in the garage and things like that. But this is my music room. So I can answer some questions now. If there's anyone that's got any questions that they would like me to answer, feel free to put them in the comments either on Facebook or on YouTube. I'm dual streaming to both platforms. So that's cool. If there's anyone who wants to ask me a question, I'm very happy to ask. Thank you very much to Tuba Dylan for his donation. That's absolutely fantastic. Most appreciated. And Guy T. Stanton did a donation right near the start of the stream as well. So that would be absolutely fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. Very much appreciate those donations. It's just a shame I can't go out and spend them at the moment because here in New Zealand we're in the middle of a lockdown, so we're not allowed to leave our houses. Right, so where did I get my Piccolo Trombone? I contacted a company on Alibaba and bought it from there. You can get them from AliExpress. They're sometimes referred to as mini trombones. Chris DeBarley Guy, how many tubas do I have? I have 6. I have 6 different tubas, a couple of B-flat ones, 1 E-flat, my little pocket tuba. I've just recently got a tuba in the key of C, which I'm going to do a video about. That's sort of one of the world's cheapest tubas that you can get. And then I've got a couple of tubas that are in pieces waiting for me to restore them. How many instruments do I have? About 102 at the last count. Certainly 102 that are either complete instruments or enough parts to make an instrument. I've then got a whole pile of extra parts that wouldn't make an instrument if I did try to put them together. and about half of that are actually in reasonably good condition. Asked, when am I finishing the Thayer valve conversion? The trombone with the Thayer valves is currently sitting over there. It's going to wait until I've got everything set up here. I don't want to make a mess until I've got a clean space to make that mess in. Somebody's asking what kind of servers do I run. I've got an old Dell Tower server that's running my virtual stuff. I've got another server and a storage array at an offsite garage, and which does most of my web stuff. I've got a whole bunch of static IPs that go to that. And then my storage server is just a homemade thing. It's currently got about 27 or so terabytes of usable storage in a redundant array. So yeah. Right. How long will the script document be open? I'm actually procrastinating putting that back together and seeing if I can create something usable about that. Is the Piccolo trombone technically a sopranino trombone? There's a question from Facebook. No, it isn't. The sopranino trombone is a trombone in the key of E flat, which sits between the soprano trombone in B flat and the piccolo trombone also in B flat, but just an octave apart. So if you have the complete trombone family, you've got contrabass in B flat, contrabass in F. There's the old trombone in G, bass trombone in G, which is sort of obsolete now. You've got bass trombone in B flat, tenor trombone in B flat, which is both the same key. It's just different dimensions of the tubing and things. Then you've got alto in E flat, soprano in B flat, sopranino in E flat, an octave above the alto, then piccolo in B flat, an octave above the soprano. So that's how the trombone family looks. I'd really want to get an F contrabass trombone one day so that I can redo my trombone family video and have the complete family. But of course, I don't have a sopranino trombone. There's only ever been a really small number of them made anyway, so they're custom items. Right, some other one. Have I ever considered trying a contrabass bugle? We don't have them in this country, so I'd have to import them from the US, which is really expensive in terms of shipping. So that's not really practicable. So yes, I'd try one if I had one, but there's no way I would spend that money to buy one and then to get it shipped over here. Thank you very much, Jack Renner, for your donation. That is most appreciated. Yeah, thank you very much. Do I know Two Set Violin? Yes, I follow them. I follow them on my private personal YouTube channel, on my personal YouTube thing. I subscribe to Two Set Violin. I'm aware that they did a segment that featured my dropping the contrabass trombone video a little while ago, so that was good. Yeah. Which instrument is my favorite to play? I don't have a favorite. Probably the one that I enjoy. The one that I usually enjoy playing the most is my Boozy and Hawkes round stamp Sovereign model euphonium. That's the one that I play in the competing brass band that I play, the local brass band here. So I enjoy playing that one the most, I guess. But followed by bass trombone, I enjoy playing that in a band as well. So I don't really have a favorite as much. As far as instruments I started on, I actually have in my collection the instrument that I started on. It's a very old cornet, and I'll go and grab it for you because it needs restoration. Hold on a moment. So this is the case. It has no handles. At least I think this is the case. Let's see if it is the case or not, as the case may be. No, it isn't. Oh, I'm an idiot. This one here is just an old Besson & Co. prototype Flugelhorn. Nothing remarkable about that. I thought this was the case for that other instrument though. So, there may still well be another box full of instruments that I haven't unpacked because I can't actually see the case for this instrument that I learnt on. Okay. Anyway, what I was going to show is it's a really old cornet, and it is in absolutely abominable condition. It's in about 3 or 4 pieces. The pieces have all been soldiered a million times, and instead of having finger buttons, one of the valves has got a button that's been soldered onto the top of the valve stem. It's just a mess. I was going to show that to you, but I can't see it on my storage racks in front of me, which means that there's probably more boxes of more instruments somewhere in the garage and storage. Anyway, Trent, do you prefer trumpet or cornet? I prefer neither, really. It depends on the context. They're just 2 different instruments, really. So I don't really have a preference for one over the other so much. Could you put a link or something to where we can get these instruments and how much they cost? I got most of them from eBay. I do not recall how much they cost me. It's probably good for the state of my marriage not to list out all the things that I've paid for and the amount that they cost me, so I won't be doing that. But yeah, you can find some interesting things on eBay from time to time. Where's my hair? I decided to shave my beard off after lockdown. In my work, I meet customers and I have to look somewhat presentable. So I don't have the opportunity normally of just doing whatever I want. And so when we got to lockdown here, we had 4 weeks of lockdown. I thought I'd shave my beard off, but left a dirty, scraggly mow. And then I decided to shave all my hair off. It's starting to grow back, but you can't, with the way that the lighting and white balance is here, you can't really sort of see that. My wife hates it. My daughter doesn't mind. Yeah, so that's the story with my hair. Jameson Baker, B flat or C tuba? I'm sure you prefer E flat, being a brass band guy, but but just wondering. I'm familiar with B flat and E flat. The fingering for C tubas, I'm not great at. I personally find that I'm able to play the E flat tuba better than the B flat. But I don't really have a preference. They serve 2 different purposes. So if you want an instrument to give a really low, thunderous foundation for a band or a chord to sit on, then B-flat tuba is what you'd go for. If you want something that I find to be more agile and nimble to play that serves as a brilliant bass voice, then yeah, an E-flat tuba is perfect. There's not really cases in which you'd choose one over the other because they're designed for 2 different purposes, really. What is the instrument with many bells on the wall? Go back and go back to the start of the video and you'll find out. It's called a shelmai. How many rotary trumpets do I have? Many. You can see 2 up on the wall. Is there 2? Yeah, just 2 up on the wall. I've got at least another 1, possibly 2 Soviet-era trumpets. I've got a rotary valve cornet and some other rotary instruments as well. What's the oldest instrument in my collection? I've got a cornet from 1870s, from the 1870s. That's probably the oldest instrument that I know the age of. The trombone that I showed before with the Vienna valves, that may be older, but I don't think it's got a serial number and I can't find any information on the maker. So it's very, very difficult to find out what age that actually is. Right, that's probably a whole bunch of questions answered. If anyone's got anything they really want to know, then hop onto Facebook and ask me a question over there. Thank you very much to those people who have donated. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you very much. And I think we'll end it there. Brilliant. Have a great whatever time period it is at this time in your place. Something like that. Thanks for watching. Click. Click.